Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including an $18 billion budget passed by the state legislature. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Jessica Boehm from Axios Phoenix, Mark Brody from KJZZ Radio, and Jim Small from the Arizona Mirror. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. We're going to start with you. As things happened, it kind of tumbled toward a finish here. What prompted it? Was it just it's an election year, let's get the heck out of here?
Yes, I also think that, we have a divided government. This is as good as it was going to get for anyone. You have some talking points for Democrats to campaign on, some talking points for Republicans to campaign on, and as long as we have a split party government, that's kind of the best you can hope for.
Yeah, spending less than the governor wanted, more than the legislature wanted. I guess there was something in between there, huh?
Yeah, as Jessica said, that's kind of what happens. And we'd been hearing from Republican leadership that they were close, like in the 90% range in agreement over the last week or so, and that they just had to hammer out a few last details. So not a total surprise. We're a couple weeks ahead of the deadline, the end of the fiscal year, and obviously everyone wants to get out and campaign and basically be done with the session at this point.
Jim, it seems like Republicans especially are very pleased that H.R. 1, the federal tax conformity, it's through, it's over, it's a done deal. What does that mean as far as state finances are concerned?
Well, what it means for the current year, this budget that they just passed this upcoming year, it means basically about over 3 years, it's about $1.4 billion, right? I think in total. There's more of that coming out in this very first year because they essentially adopted the entirety of what was in H.R. 1 and all of those tax changes. The state adopted all of them. In the next 2 years, they actually back several of those things out, including the state and local taxes, which I think was one of the kind of the bigger conflict points. And the tax hit goes down a little bit in the second and third year of this proposal. But really they almost felt like they had to, I think, adopt everything in this first year because people have already filed their taxes. And this is a conversation we've been having on this show and at the Capitol since January, when it was the very first thing Republicans did was push this tax conformity through, and all these fights with the governor's office and even the governor's office and the Department of Revenue, which is, which she oversees. It's an executive agency. We're not even on the same page for months. And, the end result is, everyone in Arizona filed their taxes. And if they were to go back and change this, there is a high likelihood that some number of people would have to go back and refile their taxes, yes. Which I don't think anyone really wanted to make that happen.
I would think especially the governor's office and the governor herself, a lot of splaining to do if we got to go back to your tax guy.
Yeah, you don't want to do that during an election year, probably ever, but especially when people are, and this would all be happening about when early ballots are coming out. I think any reasonable politician would want to avoid that.
And we have child care deductions, child tax credit, these sorts of things. Democrats seem like they were pleased with that aspect of it.
Yeah, what's funny is everyone's taking credit for the parts of the tax cuts that they want, that they think will campaign well. So yes, obviously Republicans are spinning this as this is President Trump's plan and we are all in. Democrats are saying like, hey, we've found ways to make this about working class people and get tax cuts for them.
We also found ways to cut across the board state agencies, but not at 10 at first and then went down to 5. Now 2.5% across the board for most.
Most agencies, yeah. There are a few that are not. I think corrections and some of the public safety ones are not included. But yeah, the budget that the Republicans approved and the governor promptly vetoed was 5% across the board with those same general exceptions in agencies. Now it's 2.5%. But to Jim's point, if you're cutting, $450 million out of the state coffers, if you're losing revenue, you can't keep spending the same amount of money, so you got to find those cuts somewhere.
Yeah, and data centers, that was kind of a big deal for Democrats to do something about this. Something was done.
Yeah, and it was something I think that the governor, had mentioned in her State of the State speech about wanting to roll back these incentives on data centers and these tax breaks that they're getting. And the Democrats were able to not get that entirely, but they were able to get a 3-year pause on issuing these new certificates that essentially say that this company can get these tax breaks for building these data centers and operating them. So it's something, and this is obviously has been I think a growing concern and an issue that has really started to take on a life of its own, not just here but across the country. We've seen lots of states grappling with how do we regulate data centers? What do we do? That economic development versus environmental impact and quality of life impact, and how do we balance those kinds of things? This is Arizona's path forward, at least for now, as a state that has, up to this point, I think, really been among the leaders on attracting and building data centers.
Indeed. The new C is computers, by the way. The 5 C's now is 6, it's computers, from what I understand. Medicaid eligibility verification, was that part of H.R. 1, or is that something that the legislature, did they adapt, did they conform, or did they do this on their own?
It is mostly part of H.R. 1, though Democrats say they have found a way to not do the full eligibility verification. So they say about 40,000 Arizonans will still be able to remain that would have otherwise been, subject to this increased verification eligibility requirement.
Because a lot of folks are losing food assistance. I mean, we've already known that. I mean, that's already happening.
Right.
This is going to be a little bit more of the same?
Right. So you've had both the SNAP side of things and now the Medicare cuts. And so a large part of that is not necessarily cutting people out like on face value, but making it harder to prove that you are eligible. And so this is part of that.
Indeed, yeah, Medicaid and now and SNAP and these sorts of things. I wanted to ask about Prop 123 because it seems like there's some late shuffling going on with that.
Well, I mean, they've been trying to do this for how many years now? I mean, it expired more than a year ago now. This was the proposal that barely passed voter approval a number of years ago when Governor Ducey was in office to take money out of the state land trust to give to schools. It's, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million or so per year that since it's expired, the legislature and the governor have continued to give the schools that money, but it's from the general fund as opposed to this initiative. They just haven't been able to get on the same page about what to put back to voters. And it seems like it would be important for everybody to be on the same page because you'll remember when it initially passed, the governor, Republicans, Democrats, the business community, pretty much everybody was on board, and it's still like, it passed by that much.
Right.
So the conventional wisdom is if people aren't on the same page and aren't all behind it, it might not pass, and then what do you do?
Why aren't they on the same page, Jim? Who's at odds here?
Well, everyone's at odds. The biggest issue, I think, is really that Republicans amongst themselves really haven't even been able to kind of come up with a plan that they can all coalesce behind. And there's some competing factions here, right? Like the governor's office and the Democrats and the public education advocates have wanted to structure it in a way that school districts have a lot of latitude in how they use that money and in who they use it to boost pay for. So not just teachers in the classroom, but also support staff, folks like librarians and social workers and, the folks who help a school run but aren't necessarily in the classroom actually educating kids. Republicans have largely been in agreement that they don't want that to happen. They want it all to go to teachers. But then there's some squabbling about how much money it should be, what the size of the pull from the land trust should be, and as well as whether they should bootstrap school voucher protections into that as a way to basically say, okay, look, if we're going to give the public schools more money and teachers more money, then we want to make sure that no one can come after the voucher program down the line. And that's been, that's been a real source of strife within the Republican Party as to whether that's a good move politically. And certainly if they do that, they're not going to get Democrats on board. They're not going to get the governor. They're not going to get the public school advocates. So then are you really setting yourself up for failure to just put something out there that's going to get rejected?
Jessica, speaking of vouchers, I've seen just late today a report from the Republic that there is competing a ballot measure that would kill teachers' unions. You could nix that one if you nix the two competing ESA measures that were approved. It sounds like there's some shuffling there going on.
Yeah, I mean, let's make a deal, right? I think that's what we're trying to get to. But at the end of the day, I think it's probably not likely that the ESA reform folks are going to take their foot off of the gas. It's a pretty significant issue for Democrats, especially.
Oh, yeah, I mean, this is right. We are at the 11th hour here. Like literally, they were hoping to get the legislative session wrapped up today, and this idea just kind of pops up and springs up and says, "Hey, guess what? We're going to do some horse trading. We're going to, the legislature." When the teachers union came out and launched this ballot initiative to really put some strict guidelines on the ESA program and really reform it and pare it back from what it is now, which is, about $1 billion a year. Mm-hmm. And to put some guardrails on it, Republicans responded by introducing a ballot measure that essentially would eradicate the Arizona Education Association, make it almost impossible for them to exist and do what they do in the state. So this is a response from the teachers union to an existential threat, to the fear that they're going to put this on the ballot and that voters might get behind it, or that they're going to have to spend their money on it to defeat it. So if they're going to make this trade, it seems like a really heavy lift to do on the very final day of session with an idea that hasn't even really been around up until this point. And on top of that, you also have the folks who've been out there fighting the voucher program from the beginning. Thinking of groups like Save Our Schools Arizona, who are adamantly opposed to this idea and don't want to see the teachers union essentially trade away this initiative program and this initiative idea that they work really hard to kind of pull together and coalesce behind, and then trade that away in order to just benefit themselves and kind of get some modest, really modest reforms on the voucher program.
Well, and the initiative thing is really interesting because that's sort of the last thing after the budget was taken care of. Figuring out which of the nearly 24 referenda that were still sort of floating around at the Capitol, the legislative leaders wanted to send up to the ballot, was kind of the last thing they had to do, because we all remember 2 years ago how many initiatives were on the ballot, how many pages the ballot was, how long it took to fill out. So there's something that, it's something they have to think about is, which of these do we think might drive turnout? Which of these do we think realistically will have money behind them maybe to get a good campaign going so voters will approve them? How many of these might just go up there and sort of be left to die on the vine? So it's interesting that was one of the things that came up today, because that referendum thing is still sort of the outstanding big issue that they have to deal with.
And also would drive people to the ballot as well. I mean, drive people to vote. That you always have to look at that regarding these ballot measures.
Absolutely, and especially the folks who are making these decisions will be on the ballot. And so they want to make sure that not only are they driving turnout, but the right type of turnout that they think will benefit them.
All right, Jessica, winners and losers in this budget battle?
That's a good question. I mean, as I mentioned, we're in divided government. No one's going to come out feeling like a total champion. But I would say it appears on paper that Republicans got more of what they wanted. That said, as we've mentioned, some of it goes away after a year. There are some caveats broken into the deals that were made. At the end of the day, I think that you don't really drive a lot of turnout of people who were undecided based on anything that either side got, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. What do you think, Jim? I mean, who opposed this budget in its final form the most and the loudest?
There's a handful of Democrats who opposed it for a variety of reasons. Some of having to do with immigration funding, some of it having to do with some of the cuts, some of the tax cuts, just kind of the totality of it. I mean, I do think to answer the question that you asked, Jessica, I mean, I think Republicans came out far better on this budget than the governor's office did, than the Democrats did, and some of that is due to the fiscal realities of this kind of the situation we're in and where the economy is and where state revenues are, and ultimately they were able to. I think the governor really played. Her political strategy was to really try to force Republicans to try to come together and to get behind something that I think that they thought was going to be really unpalatable and politically kind of a bad budget. And at the end of the day, Republicans rallied behind something and were able to stand together. And this budget looks far more similar to the budget that Republicans passed in May than it does to anything Democrats have proposed, and certainly to what the governor proposed in January.
Yeah, especially that conformity, the H.R. 1 conformity.
Yeah, I think to the extent, I mean, I think, Jessica, you made this point earlier, to the extent that the tax cuts are sort of the big headline from this, depending on how you frame it, I mean, everybody is taking credit for it. The Republicans are saying, hey, Arizona's the first state to fully conform with H.R. 1. The governor is claiming credit for these tax cuts. Now, she and Democrats had proposed some of these, like they definitely wanted some of these from early on in the session, but not all of them. So I think it'll be interesting to see, to the extent that anybody tries to campaign on these, how they do it and how voters respond to it.
All right, let's move on. There were other things that happened this week, including an appearance in our studios here of Democrats running in Congressional District 1. We had a conversation, Jessica, candidates in conversation. In case
Yes,
yeah.
of course.
Yes. What'd you get out of that?
Everyone was awfully polite until about 5 minutes left,
they were.
weren't they? No, and we were talking about this before the show. It's so hard in a primary, and especially in that primary, where these folks cannot be too far to the left, because in CD1, you're going to need to win a whole lot of independents, or I guess we call them no party designated, bad, and a fair amount of Republicans too. So they have to be kind of careful. So they were awfully nice. They agreed on almost everything, but there were a couple jabs there at the end.
Amish Shah and Marlene Galan Woods, the two front runners. Obviously, I think Shah said DC insiders were pushing for Woods. And then Woods kind of came back, and it's her own attack on him. Again, late in the game, it's almost like they realized, hey, we're almost out of time. I haven't got my shots in.
Yeah, it did seem like that a little bit, and this is really an interesting primary, and this is an open seat, a seat that Democrats have been targeting for, pretty much since it was drawn, right? The last decade Democrats we've been able to watch them try to go after the seat and continue to throw people at it and get really close a couple of times, but not be able to get over the hump. This year, the seat is vacant. It looks like we're going to see maybe the best chance that Democrats have had to take this seat on. And so it does matter who, to a certain degree, I think, who comes out of this primary. And, Amish Shah was the nominee last time. I think he was generally not the one who establishment Democrats and kind of DC-oriented Democrats wanted to see get out of the primary. I think that they kind of behind the scenes were backing Marlene Galan Woods. This year, it's much more open and out. They're out in front of that. We'll see what happens. Amish Shah has proven time and time again, even in crowded primaries back in the legislature, that he is able to connect with voters and muster the support he needs to emerge, into the general election.
He's got quite a ground game. He knocks on almost every door he finds.
Yeah, he's pretty well known for knocking on a lot of doors and knocking on a lot of doors multiple times. And what's really interesting, I think, about this race is you referenced Shah and Woods. They both ran 2 years ago too, so it's not like they don't know each other, and it's not like they haven't debated each other before and tried to figure out their policy differences, of which there especially in a primary there often aren't a ton of policy differences. But this is also a really interesting and important district for the country to decide who's going to control Congress. This is maybe the swingiest, one of the two sort of most swing districts in Arizona, and there's a lot of folks saying, if Democrats want to control Congress, take control of Congress, they have to win this seat.
Which is why Marlene Galan Woods went after Amish Shah there at the very end when Shah was saying, okay, the question was, will you support the Democratic candidate? And that's usually a yes, yes, yes. Only if it stays above board, and talked about campaign ads, and she just jumped right in and said, you're talking about you're going to support a Republican here?
Yeah.
A little bit of that goes a long way.
Yeah, that got fiery fast for a whole hot second. But but yeah, I think that's like, at the end of the day, Amish Shah is obviously not pleased with at least what has already come out or what he suspects are going to come out as far as like attack ads. But here's the thing. Like Mark said, this is an extremely competitive district, and national Democrats, local Democrats, everybody wants to make sure that the strongest candidate emerges. Obviously, the DC Democrats have decided that they believe that's Marlene Galan Woods, but I wouldn't ever write Amish out.
And we should mention Jonathan Trebel and Rick McCartney were the other two candidates there, and they presented themselves very well. Could they siphon some votes off the two front runners, or is that?
It's tough to say, especially when you have two candidates who have run before and also who have pretty good name ID. Shah obviously knocks on everybody's door several times, and Marlene Galan Woods was on TV for a long time, and has been around a little bit as well. So it's tough. We saw it 2 years ago, right? There were, I forget exactly how many candidates, but there were a lot of candidates in the Democratic primary 2 years ago, and a lot of them didn't really end up getting a lot of support in the end.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's got a long way to go as far as getting someone with the edge there. Jim, every week Every week, it's the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors and the Maricopa County Recorder going after each other for a variety of, now we've got stolen scanners or scanners removed with unauthorization. What's going on here?
Well, what's going on is there's a special prosecutor that is looking into what happened with the Maricopa County Recorder's Office and the County Elections Department. Essentially, what it boils down to is there was a scanner and some equipment and some boxes of ballot envelopes that were removed from the election office and were taken out. And it was one of the people was the chief information officer for the recorder's office, one of the top aides to the top administrators under Justin Heap. And the board and the elections department, very quickly worked to try to get the equipment returned, and said, this isn't yours, you don't have the ability to it. There's some fighting over who actually owns this equipment. The recorder's office says they do. The elections department that's run by the board says it owns it. The board ultimately, this got referred to Maricopa County Attorney's Office to investigate what was going on here, and the County Attorney's Office has an understandable conflict, so they farmed it out to a special prosecutor. They hired the former Pinal County Attorney, Kent Volkmer, to come in and look at it, and so they've been investigating it, and Pinal County Sheriff's Deputy has been helping with that. They've been interviewing people and knocking on doors of some of these recorder's office employees,
yes.
And I don't know where this is going to go next, but again, here we are, just right on the doorstep of an election, and this fighting continues. Not only continues, but is getting worse and more intense, and the barbs that are being traded are just not the kind of thing you want to see if you want an election that's going to be managed well. It does not instill a lot of confidence.
So why is a staffer for the Maricopa County Recorder's Office pulling up in a car and taking out a scanner along with other material and then returning a short time later and putting it back? What?
I think this special investigator would like to know that, but I think regardless, even if there is a completely above board reason for it, not that I can really imagine what that would be, but even if it's all above board, this just fuels more bad optics around Maricopa County elections. We are literally weeks away from early ballots going out. I covered the county a million years ago and still get their Twitter or X updates. And every 3 hours, almost on the dot, it's the board says the recorder's full of lies, and the recorder says the board is full of lies. Whether any of that is true, we are in a position where Congress could be, the control of Congress could come down to Arizona, come down to Maricopa County. And we have election officials that not only can't get along, but are actually suing each other and sending special investigators after each other. It's a very concerning and disappointing thing.
Yeah, threats of arrest on all sides here.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is that, to Jessica's point about the optics, the scanner was removed during an election. It was during the Tempe City Council election.
Yes,
it's not like it was just some random Wednesday where there's nothing going on. Again, who knows why and who knows what actually happened? I certainly don't. But optically, that's a tough look.
Yeah, I just don't understand why it happened in the first place. Taking it home to test it yourself and then bringing it back. Could that? I mean, possible?
Maybe, but regardless, the board has decided that it's compromised, and they had to buy another one.
Exactly.
I think it was $70,000.
$70,000. Yeah, indeed. All right, Jim, we're going to wrap it up with Lydia Hernandez. Who is Lydia Hernandez, and is she still a Democrat?
Well, she is a Democrat, and she's been censured by the Democratic Party for in the West Valley, in West Phoenix, where her district is, and censured for essentially not taking some votes and some stances that are, that the Democratic establishment and Democratic Party activists decided that they didn't like, and they were outraged enough that they decided to vote to censure her, to essentially say, we don't support this person, and we're going to maybe support her opponent in the election, which it's kind of a way that opens a door, I think, for the party, which typically abstains from getting involved in primary contests, to come out and say, hey, we're going to actually back the opponent.
Yeah, it's basically the idea is you vote with Republicans too much.
Right. And, I think we're seeing this come up in different ways in different races, but progressive Democrats are seeing that there is like what appears to be a public opinion shift in their favor going into this election. And so where they can try to oust, Democrats they don't see as being part of the team, they're going to take that opportunity every time. And that's what I think you're seeing here.
And Hernandez says that she votes, she reflects the community. The community is not blue. She says it's purple, not blue. It's not probably the nicest, best thing to say in front of a bunch of Democrats.
Yeah, they might not want to hear that, but I mean, she's been pretty out front from the beginning about where she stands on things. I mean, she supported Governor Ducey at one point. I mean, that's,
Yes.
not a brand new thing. He was in office a little while ago now.
And it's not her first adventure with controversy.
It is not. She has, she's had some other issues. There was a situation at one of the Phoenix Union High School with a security issue. There were some comments that she allegedly made that some folks in her district weren't necessarily thrilled with. So, I mean, again, like it's election season. So, she is saying that this is an attempt to maybe get her out of the legislature. Who knows?
All right, real quickly, I love ending with yays or nays. So we'll start, Jessica, yay or nay. Is there going to be any sort of budget buckling before we really get the governor signing on all these bills?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, what do you think?
I'll go with Jessica.
Okay.
No, agreed.
Okay,
No.
everything's a done deal.
Yeah.
Until it's totally signed. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
When you want to be more inspired, Arizona PBS delivers unforgettable experiences in music, theater, and the arts, thanks to members like you. And
Welcome to Friendship Village. Let me show you around.